That's good because my name means blunt instrument.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 61 of Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. I'm very excited to be here with Mark Thomson from William Grant and Glenfiddich. Okay, I wanted to make sure I said the right Glen. I knew it was Glenfiddich, but I was like, I'm going to stop myself right there just to make sure. Glenfiddich. And with Hasan Sivrikaya.
Sivrikaya, yeah.
Sivrikaya from Switzerland. He's calling in from oh my God, Switzerland. I'm really should. I'm calling that right. Switzerland for Bacardi. He represents the Prestige portfolio, and Mark is calling in. He's normally calling in from Scotland, but where are you right now?
Bucharest, Romania.
Very nice. As you do. Very, very cool. So thank you, gentlemen, for making the time for me today. Jumping on Celebrate the Brand Ambassador. How's everybody doing?
I'm all right. It's Friday. I have a whiskey and a whiskey show ahead of me, but I'm doing all right.
Hasan, what are you drinking?
Bacardi Ocho.
This is the easy question.
Yes.
He's like, I'm not sure, but it's brown and it's tasty. And Mark, I'm assuming you're drinking Glenfiddich. So we can talk about it again. So I always like to start off the show with, tell me your job title, and then tell me all your responsibilities underneath that job. And feel free to expand because, as we know, everybody's job as a brand ambassador is different. And there are many expansive things that many people don't think fall underneath the title of brand ambassador that you guys probably have to do on a daily basis. So Hasan, I'm going to start with you. So tell us your full job title and what you do for the brands.
Alain, first of all, thank you very much for your invitation. It's an honor for me.
My pleasure.
And it's really great. Even today, I was a little bit early before, but it's okay now. Brand ambassador. I'm in fact working as a portfolio trade ambassador. I mean, at the beginning, when I started, nearly 16 years ago, it was brand ambassador, but by the time it changed. So Bacardi Martini Patron International, Switzerland. I'm responsible for our premium portfolio, looking after our top bars, bartenders community, giving brand category bar education, doing also PR launch events, supporting our national sales force, key account, consulting our gastronomy partners. In fact, everywhere, anything about inside the bottle, or drinks. I call also myself sometimes, I'm egg white, egg white. In fact, I don't like.
Why do you call yourself egg white?
If you see that as a cocktail, the whole industry, what we're doing, there are brands, customers, guests. I think we are never a main ingredient or modifier. We are like in fact, egg white. I don't like very much in cocktails, but egg white. Or these days there are different things also to combine all the flavors together. Gives a nice texture, nice color, nice foam. So tying up all the ingredients together, I think that's what we are doing in fact for the industry. So I'm in fact sharing my passion, love, experience with our bartenders community, customers, consumers around Switzerland. That's what I do and what I love.
16 years, you have to love it. Thank you. And Mark, yourself?
Well, after that, holy shit, I hope none of my bosses are watching this, Anne, because you made me sound like I do absolutely nothing. As you said, Alain, the role changes on a daily basis, but I'd see myself as an educator. That's it. So whether it's press, consumers, on-trade, off-trade, grocer, family, somebody in the street you bump into, you're always sort of have the brand front of mind. I've been with Glenfiddich for 10 years now, and I worked for the Grant family a little bit longer than that. I just find it a really interesting role. I think it's something that is constantly developing. Certainly when you move around the world as well, you're in new markets. As I said, I'm in Bucharest today. which was a last-minute request to come across here at a whiskey festival. So now my eyes are being opened to a completely new thing. It's only the 4th time this whiskey festival is taking place. So for myself as an ambassador, I'm wandering around just, it's almost like the first whiskey show again, seeing how things are done. So it constantly changes, and but you're trying to stay ahead of the curve. I'm not so much the egg white, maybe I'm the aquafaba, because, you know, I'm the modern incantation of that. But I do appreciate.
That's awesome. How is it in Bucharest right now? Like, what is it? Anything different about that show?
It's very male orientated, it has to be said. It feels a little bit like stepping back and doing shows 10 years ago. But the interesting thing is the brands that have turned up. Romania's first single malt is here. I've just tried 3 or 4 of their expressions, and it started up some really good conversations with people at the show, just on, you know, what new distilleries are doing and how they're representing, bringing their malts forward. So who knew Romania had a single malt?
Yeah, who knew? Yeah, exactly. And a single malt, what an interesting category for them to be part of. So good for them. Hey, we learn something new every single day. So I really want to get talking about that because the BA role is unique, right? So there's no 2 jobs being the same. But you come into this job, right? So you had a lot of skill sets, obviously, you might have learned from your prior careers, whatever that might have been, right? That kind of prepared you a little bit for this role. So I kind of want to talk about, what are some of the skill sets you thought might have helped you from before that you utilize now? And then what are some of the skill sets? Because there's a lot that we need to learn when we become brand ambassadors. And, people hire bartenders thinking, yeah, they're great. They understand how the industry works. And there's some things about what you used to do that will tie in, but there's a lot of new things. So I want to start with Mark, and I'll start with you. Like, what did you do before? And then and what are those skill sets that kind of, you're like, oh, this kind of helps me with my current role?
So I 100% agree. I started in retail, in tailoring, and that was kind of my career that I wanted to follow on for. I was a assistant buyer for a company that brought in things like Prada and Gucci and Jill Sander. So at a very early age, I had I had this attention to detail and looking out, for small things. Attention to detail, that is, Mark, you just repeated yourself. Retail is really funny because very similar to a brand ambassador, you have something you want to get across to someone, whether it's a unique selling point or a benefit to that customer, whether they're walking in through a shop front door or walking in through a bar. It's very, very similar. I moved into the hospitality industry in London in 2000, working at One Aldwych Hotel under a gentleman called Gordon Campbell Gray, and learned so much about luxury and style and presentation there. Those transferable skills certainly came from retail, almost cold calling. And I'd worked in bars. I ran the lobby bar at One Aldwych for a number of years as well. And you never know who was coming through the door. It could be someone that saved up all week to buy a cocktail, or it's someone who is going to drop $5,000 behind the bar that night. And you had to very quickly adapt your style of communication to them in order to make them feel as welcome, so that it leveled the playing field. And I think that, as an ambassador, is one of the skills I think I've dragged across the most, is being able to not identify the individual, because everyone says that I can identify an individual. You never can now. Wealth and spend are very different things, and you never know who you're speaking to. That's so true. I think it was an almost learning curve of getting it wrong a few times in the hotels or in retail. You'd have guys come in on a Friday night in construction wear, with a hard hat under their arm, with £2,000 cash to spend on a Gucci suit. Wow. And yet you'd have the man come in or the lady come in, with the entourage, who would browse and then walk out again. And you'd spend more time with the one with the entourage than the guy in construction boots, right? So I think at an early age, that was something I learned to adapt and hone as a skill. And it's just trying to be personable, so that each person that you interact with feels like you are giving them their full attention. And you have to, as an ambassador, you have to understand that. I think the one thing, though, that I've learned since is how to, when you're in a bar, and I'm glad you mentioned that about taking bartenders into this role. When you're in a bar, you're in your safe environment. In fact, you feel like you're king of the castle, and your turret is the bar in front of you. So you feel secure and safe. You know everything about that speed rail. You know all the products behind. And as the guest comes in, very often you feel like you're in control because they've come into your environment. With one of the things I had to adapt as an ambassador is to sort of let that go a little bit, because there is no barrier. You're all actually meeting on neutral ground. Switzerland, let's say, which is very apt for this call. You're meeting on neutral ground. You're trying to find a common denominator, which is the brand or the spirit or the meal you're about to have. And that becomes a bit more about hosting, interacting constantly. It's not about here's the dram, here's what it's made of, here's how to enjoy it. You actually have to curate the entire evening if you're hosting a dinner. And that becomes a harder task. The older you get, certainly, and the more specialist the groups become, you start to have to learn about world politics, things not to say at tables, how to, and that's something that's built up over years, I think. It's sort of that adaptation. We have to be flexible and malleable as ambassadors. We have to learn new skills on a daily basis. Social media, for instance, I'm a dinosaur now when it comes to, although I now have started a TikTok account, can't quite get the dance moves right yet, but I'm working on it.
No, those are all great points. And being adaptable is something you have to be to be able to adapt to a room is probably one of the biggest skill sets that any brand ambassador has to have, because you never know the skill set of the people that you're speaking to. You don't know their level of interest. So being able to gauge that and be able to adapt it. But I also love the fact that you learn, actually, it was Charlotte Bosie said it a long time ago when she worked in London. She said, you never knew who, the Dorchester, you never knew who was coming in. It could be a Saudi prince and he's dressed in ragabond clothes, so you have to treat every guest the same and understand not to have that prejudice, like not to have that mindset and those preconceived notions. So it is a lot about adapting. But yeah, and learning social media, I think a lot of us, I think all of us here are a little bit of dinosaurs, and I'm impressed with the TikTok. That's even a step I haven't gone to adapt. I'm like, too many things to learn. But yeah, there's so many new skill sets that when you jump into this role, about being corporate or social media, and it's it is definitely an evolving role every single time. But that's what keeps it challenging and interesting, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe the hardest skill, and the one that I haven't nailed yet, is actually coming into the corporate world. I ran my own business, I ran venues, and coming in as an ambassador, you're suddenly, and I'll choose my words very carefully here. The role tends to attract really creative individuals. Perhaps, and I'll go as far to say those with some neurodiversity that enjoy that buzz, and they can react very well and fast around that type of chaotic environment. But that doesn't necessarily make a great individual when you plop them into the middle of a commercial world.
No.
And I think that the hardest thing I've had to learn over the last 10 years, and even though WGS, William Grant & Sons, is a wonderful environment to work in, my biggest challenge, I think, was actually having to keep my mouth shut most times. A boss said to me recently, he said, a high percentage of the time, the things you say in meetings are correct, but 100% of the time, the way you say them is wrong. I thought that just completely sums me up, because, someone from commercial will come up with this wonderful on-trade idea, and I'll have already extrapolated all the information and thought, that's not going to work. And that's the way I'll say it. Just turn around and go, that's not going to work, rather than saying, have you considered what will happen when we get to this stage in this project? So I find it very difficult to gel well with bosses in the commercial world.
You're not alone in that one. And as I had to learn, I call it agency. As Philip likes to say, my husband, he likes to say, don't agency girl me, because I have to learn to speak an agency language, and agency language kind of softens everything, because in your head you're like, that's the stupidest fucking thing I ever heard. But in your head, you're like, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like being in a bar and the cocktail's not that good and the bartender's really excited about it. And you have to be like, well, that's really interesting. Like, you really worked hard on that. And you have to find a way to say it. That's how I just put myself like, this is the bartender giving me, so I'm just going to soften the blow and see, we could build on that. I always had to write them down. Like, here's some key phrases that I can use to build on that. You're definitely not alone on that one. Oh, Richie Cruz, thank you for tuning in. So, all right, Hasan, I'm going to pose the same question back to you. What are some skill sets you took from your prior career? And I know there's a lot there. And then, what are some things you've had to learn?
I think skills are important, but more important than that is, I think, the personality. That's, I think, very important, because personality is also evolving by the time, but skills you can learn. Even my time before, when I started as a brand ambassador, I didn't know what brand and ambassador. They asked me to work, and then I said, wow, brand, cool, ambassador, sounds sexy, good, let's do it. I mean, 16 years ago, I didn't know what that is. In fact, I all my life I started. I was born in a little summer holiday village, and I didn't do anything else. Serving
You were born
spirits all my life.
You were born in Turkey, right?
Yeah, I was born. Yes, in Turkey, and in a small south of Turkey called Kemer, Antalya Kemer. So my parents also was working, had a little hotel, and I went to hotel school and everything. I was like a kind of like a fish living in water. All my life I was also living in alcohol. But you have to be careful. Fish doesn't drink a lot. You have to be careful. Even my dream when I was child, being a pilot, I was looking up the planes. I was dreaming about it, to be a pilot and fly. I couldn't be, but indirectly I could be. I still can fly people without ticket. But it was. I think it's, as I said, it's more personality. I was from the beginning. When I was working at the bar, I was really passionate about quality, details, attention on the details, and all this helped me a lot. I mean, believing in yourself, and open to curiousness, open to learn everything every day, and also sure, love the life, love everything what you do, and everything what you do it with your heart. And I was doing a lot of things. I'm not gonna explain everything now, competitions, whatever, and sometimes
tie in for you, because you did a lot of competitions. You won a lot of competitions for Switzerland, and does that help you at all, like any of those skill sets from the competitions, in being a brand ambassador and how you educate?
Sure. Competitions is a great platform to show yourself what you can do, and by the time you're also discovering yourself what you can do, it's a big motivation. And then it gives you really a big. In my life, competitions was always really important. Where I am now, I own competitions.
And your career to competitions, getting to that next level. I was going to say, I think somebody, Richie Cruz, wanted to ask us a quick question. I would like to ask, how would a BAL handle politics in the biz, given the fact that we can't please everybody and each countries have different cultures? I don't know, Mark, I don't know if you saw that question. Do you want to start?
I'll take that one. The best thing is to avoid it, because if there's one thing I know about politics, it's little. And so as you move around, what I tend to look at is and I'm the ambassador to Scotland, but I've worked the UK, and in my role, I look after, obviously I'm in Bucharest just now, so I look after a number of different territories if they need some help, if our global ambassador Struan can't make it. And what I tend to look at is I look up in the countries, the drinking culture, the smoking culture, the socializing, and the rules of things like crossing the road, and just to try to gauge an understanding. And if someone comes in with politics, always remember you're an ambassador for alcohol, not politics. So I think the skill is to be able to engage in conversation enough to allow someone to feel like they're being listened to, but not continue that conversation in a way that drives you down into a rabbit hole, and also that tends to pull you away from the rest of your guests. So it's a juggling act. I used to be, a while back, someone told me a great skill actually, which I've adopted. When you're caught up in a conversation and it's one that you don't really want to engage with fully, and you can hear other conversations going on where you think this is where I'm better placed, one of the really interesting things to do is to take the guest you're speaking to and introduce them to someone else that you think that conversation will interest. So you just deflect the entire thing off. So it's a case of,
I love that. I'm totally going to take that one.
Isn't it a good one? It's a case of, listen, you should really meet Robert. Robert is a guy. Let me find Robert for you. Come on, I'll introduce you. You introduce the two, and you're like, I'll leave you to chat, guys, and off we go. And that's how you can escape those pitfalls, and they are traps. We pride ourselves on being able to give everyone a great evening, and sometimes giving someone a good evening is not ruining their evening by conversing in something that either you're not an expert in or really don't need to be talking about at the dinner table or in the drinks reception or something along those lines. So
I love that. I think I'm totally gonna steal it. Richie,
avoidance and deflection.
Go ahead, Hasan. Do you have anything to add?
I guess so. I mean, spirits, alcohol, you can mix with everything, but not with politics and not with driving. I mean, you just as like meet people together, bring them together, and let them. It's about having fun. So.
Yeah, I
think at the bar, we are not going to rescue the world. So some people think, but it's about having fun, having a good time, good experience, and it's for everyone. I think it's the same.
We know that's a great point. People come to join our events to escape the reality of their own lives. That's why they come along to these things in general, unless it's a product launch and it's trade that you're speaking to. But typically they're there to be entertained. And if we keep that at the forefront of our minds, we're not there to solve the world's problems. We're there to ease them slightly for a small period of time. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. We're superheroes to travel as much as we do and miss our partners and loved ones in beds. For the majority of our lives, but that's where our superpowers stop. We're not here to solve the world's problems.
But I also to build, and I agree on all of everything you both said. It's also building on what you're talking about, like looking up the culture beforehand a little bit, especially if you're going someplace unknown. If you were traveling to Asia and understanding like that's a very different culture to yours, and there's some things you could do that could offend somebody, because you didn't look at the card in Japan and hold it with your two hands and really examine it, and there are some things you can look up just to make sure, like, what are some of the cultures there that I should be aware of so I don't offend somebody, because you can easily do that, especially when you've had a few drinks and you might say something or make a joke that's inappropriate. And next thing you know, it goes down a spiral. Thankfully, most other people are drinking along with you, so they don't really usually take it so seriously. But still, I think as a brand ambassador, you should be aware of that when you are traveling to those places. I used to generally ask whoever my handler was when I was traveling to another country and say, okay, what are the things I need to know? So I don't fall into any pitfalls. And I in America, oh my God, the politics here are insane at the moment. So I just kind of avoid, any political conversations I can. If somebody is really big fan of somebody that I don't even like to talk about, I'm just like, awesome. Let's talk about drinking. Like let's go into this. We're not going to solve world problems.
I learned from a very early age, running a bar in Glasgow, which has a huge football rivalry between two teams, that even certain music you played in the bar would identify that bar as pro one team and anti the other. So, that was when I was 19, putting playlists together, and people would come up and say, you can't play that because that's a terrorist song, that's a football song. And of course, that rivalry in Glasgow is known around the world for being pretty violent at times. So, I learned at a very early age to work out and ask and understand one person's poison is another one's pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, Mark, I'm going to talk about you. So you've been working as a whiskey ambassador for 9 years now. And I'm sure things have evolved. So what have you seen change since you just got into it? And it sounds like you're in a place right now, things might have stepped back a little bit. What have you seen
Well,
change?
I mean, that's rather drivery of me to say that it's stepped back a little bit. The interesting conversation I just had, and they're based on both sides of the coin. One, Romanian whiskey, single malt. I've tasted 4 or 5 from their range, all in cask finishes. Now, they're a young distillery. The spirit may be only 3 or 4 years old, but they have quite a large portfolio to offer you, and a tasting they can take you through. And that highlighted one of 2 things to me. One, 15 years ago when I started nearly 20, but when I started coming to big whiskey shows 15 years ago, it was mostly whiskey geeks. They came to try and catch you out, that their knowledge was better. That was typically the way they were just flexing constantly. But also the whiskies that were released then, and I worked very closely with people like the English Whiskey Company that had just released a 3-year-old back then. And I remember the comments of people saying, well, it's not a 10-year-old Scotch, is it? I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. It's 3-year-old English whiskey. But what relevance does that have? But even the distillery themselves then, I think, were trying to emulate Scotch and aged Scotch. So it's a bit like buying wine en première. You'd have an early young growth wine that needs decades to develop. And there's a very small amount of people that can try a sample of whiskey which is young and understand the distillation process and the cask choice to see that, to foresee that and say, right, okay, in 10 years' time, I can see where this is going to develop into. Now, I don't think the whiskey shows I don't think the nucleus is the geeks. I think actually we find much more groups of people unencumbered by the rules of Scotch. Coming along as a group of friends. They're not coming because they've been dragged along by someone who's the whiskey geek in their group. They're there to find out and explore more. And consequently, a lot of the distillery releases, the young distillery releases, are using cask finishes to round out the spirit, to make it appealing to a novice palate. And I find that really interesting. There's a number of great examples. Rassay, for example, 6 different casks used in the inaugural release, making a really fruity, rounded, sweet almost dram where the novice can pick it up and go, God, that's not what I thought whiskey was. So there's 2 things. The whiskey industry, the newer guys that are coming on the market now, are far removed from the whiskies that were coming out 10 years ago as new releases. But also the consumer they're speaking to is far more educated, or at least more willing and open-minded than they ever were. And perhaps maybe that's the pandemic that caused that, where people were sitting at home and they were dialing into online tastings, not once a month, but actually twice a week. And they were
daily.
Well, it almost was daily for me. Unfortunately, I was hosting them. So that has given the general public, those who perhaps dipped into the whiskey world or the spirits categories of varied styles once a month or once every 2 months, they were suddenly building their knowledge up, but thankfully in a way that was the way it should be, approaching it by flavor, not age, approaching it by style, not region, approaching it by passion, not country or where it's origin. So that's the 2 biggest things I've seen: a change in consumer generally, and a change in the way we approach the talking or approach those consumers. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. It changed. The only thing I would say, and I have seen the change in the whiskey. I worked for an event here in America. I had a client called Whiskey X, and it's a whiskey show that the consumer, it's great. It's a lot of fun. There's no whiskey snobs. And the consumer is generally curious. They ask so many questions. It's not about like, oh, just give me the oldest one you have. Cause we've all experienced that. I'm sure Hasan, you've said like, just give me, what's the best? What's the best you have? They generally want to know. They generally want to be taken through a tasting. They want to, become better experts for themselves so they can make better decisions. My only concern, what you said was, and I'm sure, you've all seen this, in the tequila world, that's happened as well. Except for and you kind of said they're kind of creating new spirits to hit this new palate. And it's like they're dumbing down they're dumbing it down, and it's almost kind of like people are like, oh, Casamigos. I'm like, I couldn't drink Casamigos if you forced it. It was the only tequila there because there's so much vanilla, and I'm like, bleh. And people are saying, oh no, that's natural. I'm like, bullshit, that's natural. I don't care what you're doing. And so when I hear that whiskey producers, and I get it, the finishes are nice, and drinking something that has a sherry finish definitely makes it a little softer and easier. But are they dumbing it down too much? And Hasan, I don't know if you also have some thoughts about this as well. Yeah. Mark,
Exactly,
you
yeah.
go start if you had.
No, I was just going to. Yeah, I was going to back up. I agree. Yeah, there's those that are perhaps taking advantage of that situation in certain cases. I think it's also pushing the boundaries a little bit. You know, ourselves at Glenfiddich, we have tried a number of different casks over the years, and we've probably excelled at the ones we know. But you know, a lot more wine casks are coming out now. PX was an obvious one if you want to bring that sort of sweetness into your malt, and that syrupy, raisiny prune note to there. Slam it in a PX cask for 6 months, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah,
so there may be that, but as these distilleries develop, what they've got to remember, and I'm sure they do, I'm not trying to teach anybody how to make whiskey, but as they develop and they do age, that finishing process has to be managed in a good way to allow the distillery character to come through. Otherwise, that product they released when it was 3 years old to temper down immature spirit, not immature, but maturing spirit, let's call it. Look at me using my diplomacy.
You're doing very good at using that diplomacy. Well done.
That has to be adjusted, because as the spirit matures and calms down naturally, so then the reduction of that finish has to be taken into account. Otherwise, where are you going to end up? As you say, it's going to end up into a sticky sweet solution that nobody really wants to pilot anymore.
No, and it takes away from the true authenticity. I don't know. I mean, Hasan, I don't know if you've seen any of this.
It looks like you're going to the blender site, huh? It looks like.
Getting
that I'm always open for conversation. If any.
So I mean, I was gonna say, well, Richie actually had one more question. He talking about, what is the approach? Let's say the brand you represent suddenly ran out, and it would take time for the next shipment, and all your clients have been asking you every single day. Well, this is obviously something that's been happening. Hasan, I'll start with you. Has this happened to you, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, for example, now Patron El Alto introduced in USA, I think in 4 markets. The new blue bottle, aged in 11 casks. I haven't tried that yet, but I'm getting every day from my community, hey, can we get it? Are we going to get it and everything? I said, yeah, sure, we are asking, but I know it's only now in USA launched. It's coming sometimes, but we don't know when. And I tell them, hey, if it comes, you're gonna be the first that I'm going to inform you. And but yeah, we don't get everything here. I mean, even in our portfolio worldwide, we have, I think, more than 200 brands. We have something like 30, more than 30 in Switzerland. So yeah, it's happening. I mean,
so is it more just like letting them know it's coming? I mean, I always kind of use like when I was a hostess approach, and it's like, you know, you don't tell somebody 10 minutes, you tell them a half an hour. So if 10 minutes the table's available, they're really happy. But if you tell them 10 minutes and 30 minutes from now the table, they're still not happy. So I just let them know that I've told the right people, because it happened to me with Dickel. Back in the day, Dickel ran out. It was allocated. To be honest, I was brand new. Diageo never even talked about Dickel. It was 2005. I didn't even know it existed. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, Dickel, you carry Dickel. And I'm like, no. Okay, if you say so. It was Jim Meehan, you know, he's like, Lane, you carry Dickel. You need to find out. So I just said to him, Rich, I said, good to know. I was pretty naive back then. I was pretty early on. I said, I'm going to do my research for you, find out who I need to ask, and I will get back to you with an answer, whatever that answer might be. Just give me some time, you know, but I will get back to you. And you do have to come back to them and give them some sort of answer. Like, hey, this is what's happening. And for him, it was like finding out that Dickel was allocated because we had shut the distillery down for 10 years. So there was limited stock. And there was one hotel that was buying 50 cases at a time, so they got the majority of the allocation, and they only had a little bit. I was like, so I'm going to find out who the person is to see if you can get on the allocation. But it took a few. I was like, you're going to give me time, but you do need to follow up, and you do need to get back to them. And sometimes
find the right answers and
Mark, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been in that situation, right, where limited releases come out in certain markets and you don't have that one for yours. Luckily, being the home market, we tend to get most things, but, you can't plan for everything. And I think sometimes if people are asking for your brand and you can't deliver it, there's good in that, because we do special releases for certain markets because it works really well there. America's got a 14-year-old that we don't get in the UK. Taiwan's got a 22-year-old we don't get in the UK. I mean, as an ambassador, I have to scream and shout in the business to try and get these samples, because I get people internationally who travel, of course, and pick up these bottles and then send me a picture and like, have you tried this? Isn't it great? And I'm like, well, no, you've got it to lips before I have. So I think with a lot of this, when it comes to the bars and the people that we're talking to in the on-trade, there has to be a realization that, as a big business or a small business, you have limitations to what you can do. You cannot please everyone all the time. So again, we become this sort of
talking about it. Just going to interrupt you. That there's general shortages right now. I mean, Campari Week happened not this year, but the year before, and Campari was out. You couldn't find Campari anywhere. So how do you deal with your account then? Like when you're like, okay, like Campari Week's upon us, I can't get any Campari.
We had one of the major glass manufacturers caught fire a month ago, and it's Balvenie that they use most of it. One of the main suppliers to the Balvenie bottle, which is quite a unique shape. It's not quite unique; it is a unique shape. And what can you do out of the pandemic and just trying to get things up and going again, and then your bottle supplier catches fire? It's out of our hands.
Mm-hmm.
The world's a crazy mixed up place at the moment. I think everybody takes stock of that. When we came out of the pandemic, there was maybe a 6-month period, everybody had this sort of buffer zone. Oh, we understand, our server is brand new, or our drink isn't the way we wanted it, or there's an understanding. I think we've lost that now. I think now the world just is back into its angry little state where why can't I get what I want right now? Which is a shame. I thought we'd learned something from all having to hunker down and look after each other, but apparently not.
Yeah, I would hope so too. And I think the answer to you, Rich, is that there is no real answer. I think it's just more like letting them know, like, hey, this is the situation. Everybody's having shortages right now. We're doing our best to remedy it. And as soon as it comes in, you'll be the first on my list. And it's like, and until then, yeah. I don't know. It's true. Yeah, it really was. It was hard to find these things. Some things were like worth more. And that's where you started seeing giant jugs, like all the 1.75 bottles started showing up behind bars. You never saw those before, but they were all out there. And
those were all the ones that the bar owners were keeping for retirement funds, right? And they realized they had to actually bring them out and open them. Again, silver linings to everything.
Exactly. So Hasan, you've worked in Switzerland for the past 16 years. How is has hospitality culture evolved in those 16 years? Like, how has it changed since you first started? The level of cocktails, the level, what has changed? Is there more cocktail bars?
In fact, I just come to your previous question. I couldn't finish that.
Go for it.
Came out. Question. It's about quality. You have quality, attention. You have everything there, and then you need luck. Luck comes. They ask you to work for something, but luck is not enough. You need to be ready. With all your skills and everything, you need to be ready. And then when I started, I didn't know what I'm going to do. I was discovering by the time, but I was ready that time. I was passion, attention, but people saw how I'm working. All other skills I was learning also.
Mm-hmm.
After being brand ambassador, what I learned is also, coming from the bar, you have your 4-wall. At the end of the night, you control that. At the end of the night, you take your report. You see your success. you get your tips and everything, and next day starts again. But I started as an ambassador, and you are responsible of a country. You don't know which button you have to put. You need to have a nice sound like a piano. There are a lot of buttons. Which one you should put it? What is priority? What is not? It was at the beginning. It was really difficult. Then by the time you're learning, it should be everything you think long term, and also it has to be quality sure. You have this talents and everything, but it's a consistency, and also you learn by the time empathy. I think it's one of the most important thing to understand people, other side, put yourself in other shoe. That's why that was really it was interesting for me, really a great ride. And when I started, it was like in Switzerland, it was quite conservative. Switzerland is at the beginning was like that, because even in everything comes, even we are in the middle of EU, Europe, but we are not belongs to EU, European Union. I mean, everything comes. They even we have 4 languages, 4 different cultures. When you're talking, one part of your brain is translating. Everything comes slowly, but fine. At the end, it comes. Its quality has to be there. At the beginning, it was quite, I would say, conservative. Classic drinks like drinks, mojitos, caipirinhas, sex on the beaches. Classic things. But and that time there was also more popular hotel bars, and there was not a lot of crazy creative bars. And by the time I saw that, I feel happy myself. I saw the story of the people, many bartenders. They are building their own bars, their own stories. Even I had many friends. They were asking me. We were going, hey, I want to do here a bar. What do you think? They were taking ideas. And now when I see they're starting from where to where in 15, 16 years. There are a lot of bars, a lot of not only hotel bars, and also by the time we are bringing, as ambassador, we are also responsible of bringing the trends, tips, tricks from the other countries, invite master classes for credible bartenders. And now, I mean, it's really, I have to say, you need to come here, huh? Mark, also, you have to come here. It's flying at the moment. It's flying. And then, sure, that time, after the Corona, a little bit changed. People are concentrating more on hospitality, more on glass, garnish, more batching. I think Corona teach everyone a lot of quality batches.
Quality batches. There's a lot of quality batches out there.
And so they have more time for the guests. Even it's going kind of back, the hospitality. That time people had no ingredients, maybe no lime, but they had hospitality was there. Smile was there, talking to people. It's going to hospitality, but with a quality preparations, I would say.
That's fantastic. Because to be honest with you, I can go into a bar, and even if the drinks aren't that great, if the staff are great, then and they're friendly to me, and I will go back to the bar, and you just know, like, I'm going to adjust my expectations of what I'm going to order. But I enjoy the company of this bar. But it's good to hear that now, and so it's like everything's kind of lining up. The staff are there, the hospitality's there, and the quality of drinks, even if they're batched. I mean, in America, people are batching away here because they're running with less staff here than they were before.
But isn't that a great thing? I mean, being a big fan of an old fashioned. When I worked with Simon Difford, there was this huge years ago. So there was this whole thing about should you use sugar syrup, or should it be pre-batched? Can you pre-batch an old fashioned? Will it settle? And I remember going into a bar and ordering a Negroni or an old fashioned was something you would actually take time to watch. You would sit at the bar and you'd watch the bartender do it, because he's probably only making, he or her, they are probably only making 6 old fashions that night. Now you can stand in a bar and someone walks up and says, "Can I have 7 old fashions?"
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to be, I'm not on my own. I'm not with a guest. You know, if I've got a group of 5, 6 friends with me, which is rare because I don't have many friends. But if I've got a group of friends, I don't want to wait 15 minutes for all those drinks coming out. I would rather they hit the table fast so I could continue my evening. And if the quality is assured because the batching's been done right, where's the problem? You know, I don't, it comes back to this entire thing about the arms and legs that are grown, the whispers that are grown about cocktails. They must be made this way. It must be done this way. It's the same with single malt. You should never do this. You should never do that. That was all built from marketing in the 60s and 70s. We tried to promote single malt over blends. So we added rules. We made it special. Oh yeah, you must stir in a certain way, and you should only do this, and it has to rest this amount of time. And no, I'd rather have a drink well made and tasty so I could enjoy my evening with my friends, and you can go on and serve other guests. So sometimes hospitality is not about how much time you spend with the guest. It's actually how much time you spend away from the guest, as in batching, getting your shit right, getting your prep, your mise en place is all ready, so that when they come in, their evening, you know, so many different guests, they're not out to sit at the bar and watch how well you can stir a drink or throw a drink or your Japanese shake. They are here with their pals and they want to sit in the corner, get repeated great drinks, which taste good every time. The service is fast, the delivery is good, and their evening isn't interrupted by someone having to stop a conversation going, we ordered drinks 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 minutes ago. You know, so we forget that hospitality doesn't always have to be the interaction of you and a guest. It can actually be the fact you don't go near the guest, but your environment that you've created, the volume of the music, the comfort of the light, you know, the level of the lighting. But come down to it, it's how they want to enjoy their evening. You might get someone at the bar.
Absolutely. I think the days of us watching the nerdy bartender might be over. I think we appreciate the service. We appreciate a beautiful drink coming out, but us staring at them and I mean, I think some people still into it, but I think most people just want the service, the drink, make sure it's consistent. I mean, is this something that you guys train over in Switzerland, like to teach people how to batch? Because it is a skill set, like of teaching people how to batch. Is that something you guys train on or no, Hasan?
I mean, we have, as I said, it's quite trendy now, batching. We have some freaky people working behind the bar, really. I mean, they know how to do it. I mean, you don't need to show them. But we have also a lot of master classes, like people are teaching, happening a lot. But mostly people who does it, they know what they are doing,
Right.
And then also at the end, really. It's really quality cocktails coming. They just concentrate on nice ice, nice glass, chilled, garnish. But in fact, you don't need to spend a lot of time, 5 minutes for a cocktail. And then they concentrate on other guests, or maybe it's volume cocktail bar. They need to make revenue. But the places that they do it, they know what to do.
The places they are doing, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say, I know it's not difficult. It's following a measurement and then saying how many drinks you're gonna. But there is, I mean, some people have a thing about dilution and then how much. But we can go down. That's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But we are starting to also talk about the fact that, there's a whole new staff out there in the world, right? So I was in this conversation yesterday. I was working with the Campari team. We were doing a workshop, and one of the gentlemen who helps run the Campari Academy, he was saying, Eddie was saying, he said, Elena, I've been talking to bartenders here, and they're different. He's like, it's not because we were in Portland. He said, there's a new generation. He's like, and what they need and want are so different what they needed and wanted 5 years ago. They just seem to have changed their priorities. And he couldn't really express what they now need. He's like, but I think there has to be some research done. Like, who are these new people? And as brands, what can we now teach them that they might want to know? Because it's not the same. They're not the same nerds as, we were all in 2005, 2010. So I don't know if you've noticed that. Like, I know they're green. They've kind of come out of different places. Who are the new generation coming behind the bar are? I mean, have you noticed it?
I've noticed loads. And when I'm going in to see new teams now, I've completely changed the way I talk about the brand. So I talk about the brand as being a benefit to them, but not because it benefits us. I talk about the brand being something that, you know, as a bar team, they're there to do a job, but they're also there to, as coming back to that thing, is create entertainment for other people. But it comes down to tips. And so when I go in to do trainings, like, I'm going to tell you all about Glenfiddich, and maybe a bit about the single malt category, because by the end of this, I'm also going to touch on all the things that I think will benefit you behind the bar, that will give you the confidence. Because I'm still talking to a lot of people. If I go into, there's a Virgin Hotels have opened up in Scotland. There's a brand new one in Edinburgh, high end. There's a new one in Glasgow, and I went in to train the staff. I had 30 members of team there. They were front of house. And out of the 30, I said, right, who drinks whiskey? And 4 people put their hand up out of 30.
Wow.
Now, every single one of them will interact with a guest who potentially will want to drink whiskey. And what I say to them is, look, by the end of this, I don't care whether you like whiskey. That's not why I'm here. What I'm going to do is give you the skill set to be more confident, to talk about whiskey, to be able to give that guest what they need, and therefore and gain their confidence that you know what you're talking about. And once you get someone's confidence, you get their wallet. It's as simple as that. And for new bar teams, they go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you can actually make a decent bit of money in this game if you do it right. And that's what I find myself, it's almost saying to people, hey, I know you're green in the door, you're brand new, and you don't really care, you're here to pay the rent. But actually, if any of you out of the 30 want this as a career, you can end up doing a decent job, being well paid. Obviously not an ambassador. Avoid that at all costs. But yeah. it's almost those green shoots, is being able to take them and say, hey, look, this isn't a dead end job. This, in the UK, we were terrible at, you know, people walking into bars and just thinking, you're just here to serve me, get it done quickly, you don't care about what you're doing. And so a lot of the things I'm doing just now is to try and nurture these new souls, to say to them, this could be the career that you didn't realize you wanted. Some people got trapped. We all got trapped in it at some point. That's how we ended up here. We didn't have many other options. But for these individuals, it's almost saying to them, look, if you treat this right, this is a great career to be in. And it can take you around the world. Yep. And you don't even have to enjoy that particular category. But if you get the confidence and understanding of that, then customers feel more comfortable in your presence. And I think that's what I find now. Very, very green teams, but if you can encourage them to pay attention, I think they can go a long way.
No, I think that's great advice, and it's good to hear. I didn't even think about the fact that they're not coming in with this like knowledge behind them as the staff were for a long time. We kind of got spoiled, but I was to say it's a great opportunity for brand ambassadors to be able to teach and train now, and didn't even think about that, to inspire them to think like this could be a great job. Hasan, how about you? Like, have you noticed, is there a big change in like the attitudes of the new staff that are behind the bar? And as a brand ambassador, you know, what do you do to kind of help that? And
in fact, I'm also searching somehow for example, after the COVID, one of my first event, I get less barkeepers than I expected. I said, what is happening? You know, last 15 years, I had really a lot more. And I communicated, and I'm also searching now, but I think now, information, you know, they can find everywhere. Information is it's not far away from your, you know, just handy.
We have also because it's more accessible, like the information, so they don't need to see you.
Yeah, we have also a global platform, Freepour. Maybe you heard about that. We launched that, you know, to inspire, inform, educate people wherever they are in their pockets. They can go in and find everything. In fact, in Switzerland, is a little bit laws are different here. With it's not, we are not allowed to promote that somehow, but people can reach that. I mean, but I think we need to, as Mark said, is benefit. What is in there for them when you give something, that they can use and directly, because people are not patient. I mean, they cannot wait. It has to happen. Like information, it has to go quick. Now we have 4G. They have 5G is coming. No, it's not enough. It has to be 6G.
Right. I want it. I want it now. I mean, do you believe? And you were saying because you told me you used to do these events and you would email invite people, because that's how you would stay in contact with a lot of your accounts that you would have when you would get to their city, because you're only there once a month. You would have a dinner or a lunch. You would invite everybody, and everybody would come in. And this is something what the guy from Campari was saying. He said everybody has access to a phone. So I don't know. I'm going to ask you guys an opinion. Is it more about two things? A, as brand about your reputation, you have great reputation, but it has to be more built up by your company to put it out there, because to let them know it's a special treat, right? You're not just learning this on YouTube. The person is coming in who is an expert and has been doing this a while. So this is something that it's an experience, and you get out and you're gonna be part of this and you get to taste it, and so it has to be really built up, maybe a little bit more than it had to be before. And is it also that you've got to get the managers on board, that they have to be guys, this is this has to go. You're going to earn credits or something. I was just training the Jose Andres group, and Philip's been doing it for 6 weeks now. Every week he goes and he trains them on a different spirit, and he generally gets 15. It's not mandatory, but they usually get 15 to 20 people to show up, and so you can see the ones that are hungry and the ones that are just that'd be cool. I thought I'd drink some tequila today, or whatever he's teaching on. But they do a really good job of promoting it throughout the team. Hey guys, this is important if you want to advance in our company. This is things that you need to know, and we're putting this on. I don't know what can be done on the brand side and.
I think it's about building a community of learning within certainly cities. One of the things I did a few years back was to, rather than going to one venue and do a training for the 6 people, which might be 100% of their bar team, I would pick a neutral venue somewhere, and we would do an afternoon, bring in some pizzas or foods, and it would be more of a community feel. So you'd be building this bar community, this bar network in that particular city, because very often brands will focus in on certain venues because they're high volume, okay, or because they're prestige, and so we put all our effort into those. But for me, what I realized at a very, very early stage was that the key bartenders behind the bar, the advocates that are serving the customers every single night, that you actually want talking positively about your brands or about the category in general. And I keep coming back to that because, okay, I've worked for Glenfiddich for a long time, but I can't get away from the fact that I'm a whiskey lover, and I want people to feel the same way. And I passionately talk about other brands in my trainings because I've got the captive audience, so they know it's a Glenfiddich training, but to bring some provenance in from other brands actually helps with that. But flipping that round and being able to bring 3 or 4 different venues together in one city, one saves my footwork, but I can also see this sort of network building where bartenders will move from one bar to the other because there's not many bars in that town or city that are of a certain standard, and they'll flip around. So that advocate that you spent all your time building up in one venue, they move, the brand keeps focusing in on that one venue, but it's an echo chamber. Whereas the bartender you actually had spent years training or building up a passion for our brands or the way that they speak about the categories, they've moved on to another bar. And so bringing everybody back together again, I think, is a really interesting way of doing it, where, yeah, you'll get the dropouts, but then you stand in front of a room of 30 people instead of 6 here and 5 here and 12 there. You get 30 people all together, you get some food in, and you build this community, which I think is intrinsic to the success of this business, is that we understand that we're all in it together. you know, all the brand ambassadors around the world that know each other, we come to whiskey shows. Do we stand in our opposite corners going, you shall not cross? No, we don't. We go over to each other's brands, and we share and we chat, and we congratulate each other on what we're doing. And that makes you feel part of a community. And if we can install some of that into the new bartenders that are coming through and make them realize that they're not alone, and it's not just a job, it's not a 4-hour shift behind a bar on a Saturday night to pay the rent. Actually, there's loads of people similar out there. And if you all come together collectively, it's a really, we talk about the family of it all, but I think that's really important now.
No, I think the community is big, and getting them to know. I mean, Hasan, it sounds like that's something, there's probably a whole new work that you have to do, like almost like going back to ground zero to kind of get this community back together.
Exactly. I mean, what I see last time after Corona, there is also too much things happening. Too much. I mean, more than like before, it was few. Hey, one day I saw 4 different events, 4 different, nearly every week at the moment. It's incredible, and people also, the new people feeling like, okay, should I go there or there or there? As Mark said, also I'm doing so community events more. They have fun and get together, gathering events, not only information, because as I said, information they can find everywhere, and information knowledge is important, but how you use this knowledge, you need technical skills, and you cannot get that from somewhere. You need to see that there. Like for example, my daughter, she's 15. She says she's TikTok, whatever. Maybe Mark, not like you, but
Mark's why he's gonna be on TikTok.
She tells me she knows everything,
right?
More than me. Okay, good for you. I mean, even it's like a story of lion and the bird. I think on the forest. Lion has to improve that he's always every day is the lion, is the king of the, and the bird is just flying there, from the, and wanna reach, do things, but which is stronger, which is the king of the forest, like
all these
lion.
All these videos that are online show you the skills that people have built up over the years. So they show you the final polished version of how they got there. This is how to do it. There's very few educational videos out there that say, this is why we do it this way, because when you do it this way, this is what happens. It's like coming back to batching. Yeah, you could batch drinks, but if you've got citrus in there, there's an infinite time that can sit before it starts to spoil or settle. And, there's so many, but nobody tells you that. It's just like, this is how to do it correctly, not how to build up the experience of failing numerous times before you get it right. And perhaps as an industry, we're at fault there, because when we present things like pre-batch cocktails to consumers, they think it's a cheat. The same with the large ice cubes. There's loads of stuff online just now about, look at this size of this ice cube. I've been cheated in my drink. There's very few people actually gone online. In fact, I watched one today, and the guy was trying to do the right thing by saying this is why there's a large ice cube, but actually he kind of got it all wrong. It's like you're still getting the same measurement. The drink tastes better. There's slower dilution. He talked about dilution, but he didn't mention the volume of ice, thermodynamics, all the bits that we've worked out over the years.
Right.
Which is why we moved to large ice blocks and smaller drinks and clarity. And he missed all that out. It's just like, you're not getting done. I thought, there's the bit we're missing. Because we've got these new people we're talking to that just want it quickly. They want the final result. They don't want to spend time learning why the mistakes were made to get us to that point.
Yeah, I agree. It's something I've heard before, and something with the new bar teams, and is that they don't know the classics. They've skipped they've skipped right through, and they're just making the drinks whatever's on the menu, right? They learned how to make those, but if you ask them to go off of that, they're like, wait, what? Like, can you make a variation? Because they weren't taught the fundamentals and to understand it, because all of us we've already done that. And we do have to start over. So it could be starting over, just in your case, Son, like building the community again and stealing them away for the 5 other events that are going on. And like, why is this a better event? And I think that will settle down, because I think everybody just went nuts, and then it'll probably go back to normal next year, where it's like a normal pace of being out there in the world. And I think it's going to be
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully for all your guys' sake, to teach people the why behind the what, the why this is important, and behind the what. And guys, I know we're kind of going on a bit over time. So, and there's a few questions I didn't ask, but I'm going to kind of wrap it up here because we skipped, but it was good. I think we've gotten over and got to talk about a lot of great things. So I always like to end the show with, now that you're more experienced and a well-established, brand ambassador, what advice would you give to your younger self when you first took the job of being a BA?
Hasan, you can go first.
Okay, I mean, first of all, sure, they have to, we are born, we are coming to world to believe. We need to believe ourselves, to learn. We need to be open for learning everything. Every day we should learn and allow everything what we do, we have to do with our heart. And in fact, the thing is, instead of concentrating on the target result, they need to enjoy the way that goes there. It's because even it's my inspiration. Even where I'm living now, I'm living here maybe 20 years. One of my inspiration is water. Water is very flexible. Puts in every, put it in every environment, finds its way. Even one of my daughter name is starts with water in Turkish way. So it's a small stream or brook on our small river. How do you say it? Brook?
Yeah, brook.
Brook stream.
Yeah, exactly. It's there. Even that's why I saw that and I came here. I mean, when I look every time outside, winter, summer, it always consistent. It flows down. I mean, the target is open and clear, continuously goes forward, flows towards the target, and gives life to the around. When you look at this brook around that, it's always green. The best part of that, because it gives something always. It lives there. Life is there. It's not about targeting. When it reaches its target, nobody talks about this brook, but important is how you go there, how you enjoy it. I mean, we need to also the new generation, they need to take care of the way, not only what's going to happen at the end. They shouldn't concentrate on that, I would say. And also, it's very important never losing excitement. Also, I'm here like nearly 16 years now. For me, my motto is like every day is not just a day. Every day is day one. Because every day is different. Every day, nothing is under control. That gives the excitement. And every day when I start, I think it's like a wife with my wife, or maybe just the example, if you get used to it or you love it, it's also job is like that. So if I look at my wife, if I'm excited,
be careful here.
Exactly, I have to be careful. If I'm excited, I love her, yeah. But if I not, then I get used to it. It's always everything is fine, good, yeah. But job is like that. Every day when you start, if you don't feel anything here, you just better change, do something else. It's all about I think never losing this excitement. That's why I'm here. I'm still with my job, and I love it.
Which I can tell, and that's a great words of advice. So enjoy the journey. If I could start, enjoy the journey to the end, and keep it exciting every single day, and look at it as a new challenge every single day. Because you're right, every day is different, right? Yeah. So it's look at it as a new challenge. I've already done that already. And I wish I had those words of advice when I was a brand ambassador.
Yeah,
I got.
Lucky is all about preparation. It comes, you need to be ready. So just be ready always. When it comes, just take it.
No, I like that. And Mark, what would you tell your younger self?
My younger self would not listen to me. It's as simple as that. I would just probably sum it up by saying, "Don't be a fucking dick." That's it. because I don't think I would listen to myself. But I'll keep it very concise and leave it on one thing. Years ago, there's a number of things that the gentleman Gordon Campbell Gray taught me with working with him at One Aldwych, and he went on to, have hotels all around the world in Antigua Bay. And I've never seen anyone with so much drive and determination. And he did teach me a lot. One of the things he probably didn't realize he taught me was, 11 o'clock at night, the Savoy was across the road, and the Savoy Theatre, and we had some of the lead players come in one day, and it was a very late order, and he'd walked through the kitchen. He worked very late. And he'd walked through the kitchen. The KP was setting up some chips, and the KP is probably the 300th or 400th bowl of chips that day that KP had put together, and he threw them into the bowl and he slammed them down to the pass, and Gordon picked them up off the pass and put them in the bin. And he said, I don't care whether this is your 400th bowl of chips you've done today. It's the first time that guest is tasting them. So do it as if it was the first. And I'd never forgotten that. Is just because you're tired of doing something, and as an ambassador, I'm sure I've done tens of thousands of people in front of tastings. And sometimes I'll sit down and go, I cannot be bothered with this. And then you pick the bottle up and you walk out and you're like, hey guys, how you doing?
Yeah.
Because that's the first interaction. It doesn't matter about you. If you don't want to do that, this isn't the job for you. But yeah, just don't be a fucking dick along the way. That's it.
I think that's great words of advice. I think I use that whole, just don't be a dick, like at the end of the day. But I really enjoyed you guys both saying about the excitement, because I definitely know I had been that person a few times, like, oh fuck, I just don't care anymore. And that's when I kind of knew, I'm like, I need to get out, because I'm starting not to care, and I was becoming kind of a whiny bitch. So that is never good. It was because I was getting bored, and it's such a great. I look back, I'm like, oh my god, it was the best job in the world. What the hell was I being bored? I was exciting every single day. I got to meet incredible new people and do incredible things. So on those great words of advice, I'm gonna wrap this up, gentlemen. It's been really a pleasure. Hasan and Mark, it's been really enjoyed to get to know you guys a little bit better. I look forward to the day we actually maybe have a dram or a drink in cocktail in person. For those of you who tuned in, thank you so much. Richie Cruz, thank you for asking all the great questions. And with that, I'm going to wrap up the episode 61 of Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. So gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time on your Friday evening to hang out with me, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks very much, Lee. Thank you so much for having us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.